Local advertisers, agency types, say the state made a bad decision here. I'm not so sure they did, but I understand the point. And the gentleman from Adam Media Group, who were here not too long ago, kind of proffering publicly what they would do for Rhode Island in their tourism campaign, bidding for the state's business, are here tonight to talk about how disappointed they are that the governor went out of town for that contract. And we'll meet them coming up a little bit later on. How are you? Thank you for tuning in to my State of Mind, weeknights, 7:30 and 11:30 on MyRI TV, Fox Providence at midnight. And oh, by the way, now we're giving you a bonus on Sunday nights on MyRI TV. So if you miss all of the week's worth of action, you can catch our Friday show repeating on Sunday night at 9 o'clock on MyRI. All right, that's a lot of chubby guy on a television with a bad haircut. I got a thing today, so if it, you know, what's the, I try to fix it. Makeup couldn't handle it. Can we, there's no makeup staff. Not yet anyway. I need more ratings. Give me more ratings and I'll get a makeup staff. 0 to 60. That is the speed with which we now judge and make all sorts of claims, and I think it's way too fast. The headline today in Pawtuxet, Tolman High School had a little situation where students were pepper sprayed and cuffed. This after they blow out of school out of anger, protests on something that happened the day before in school. And this is the viral video, which of course there's always got to be now a viral video, right? There's a young man being taken down to the ground. He is a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, I don't know, younger brother of the kid who's on the ground. It was the one that was taken to the ground that was the original alleged reported troublemaker, yelling obscenities and being very physical in the school. And this resource officer, a police officer from Pawtuxet, had his hands full in the office between he and his brother. Everybody that's got predisposition not to like police officers wants the police officer's head for this. But I will tell you, I think there takes much more evidence to be understood and context to be offered before we start blaming a police officer for being too violent. That's my perspective. What happened today was interesting because, you know, on WPR Radio, where you can hear my show weekdays noon to 3, Steve Klampkin from our newsroom had come back with some audio of the kids. You know, why are you out here? Well, we want justice. You know, justice is a pretty broad term, don't you think? It's a systemic conversation. But right now we've got young people and even others, adults in America, who believe that as soon as something goes wrong, you get a hangnail, all heck has got to break loose. This is an incident in high school. Nobody lost their lives. A couple of boys got arrested, but then it has to go crazy. Well, Mayor Grebian, I think, exerted some calm, cool, and control when he met with the kids outside and tried to think the thing through.
You look at the video and it doesn't show the fight before or what transpired, and so that's the one thing I try to explain to my children, because as bad as it looks or as concerning as it looks, there's always more to the story, and that's what we have to investigate. That's what I ask these, you know, the students, these young men and women, to put the trust in me. I have that responsibility with the police department to do that investigation.
So he invited a few of the kids in for a meeting, which is probably the right move after they decided to take the streets. What happened afterwards with the pepper spray was all part of the rabble-rousing that went on. But I think there's more facts to be issued other than the press release by the Pawtucket Police Department on what happened inside that school. And I think that resource officer needs a little bit of consideration, you know, until we find out how bad that environment was. A 4-second clip on a 20-second video doesn't indict the officer in any way, shape, or form. All right, that's my take. That's my state of mind. Hey, you can't sneak into Johnston. You cannot sneak into Johnston. WPRI.com with the headline confirming that the law has been passed by the council there. This was the proposal by Mayor Policina, who was starting to get a little bit frustrated over the idea that people wanted into their, I guess, reported excellent school system, where folks were faking addresses, using hotel rooms, and you know, hanging out at family to be able to send kids into the Johnston school system. He was on Dan York's State of Mind recently on September 23rd and explained his thinking.
So what will happen is if I gave that bogus lease and those children do not belong in the school system because they don't live in the town, what's going to happen is Joe Policina is going to lose the homestead, and forever how long they're in the school system, Joe Policina is going to pay for educating those children. And if they don't pay, there'll be a lien on their property. And it's totally legal, and I think it's going to stop the nonsense of people letting their family and friends register in our school system.
I wonder how many other communities have this challenge. I think this is probably a statewide conversation, and interesting that Joe has kind of punctuated it in Johnston. We'll see how many folks actually have to pay the tab as we go. Oh boy, Paul Labadia, jammed up again. The headlines read like this. This is the same gentleman that more or less lost his career when Target 12 asked him all those questions. You remember Tim White? Well, he was back in court today.
Former Coventry Fire Chief Paul Labadia was taken into custody by the Rhode Island State Police Wednesday and brought to Superior Court, where he was arraigned before a judge. He's charged with 3 counts, 2 of obtaining money under false pretense and 1 count of falsifying a document. Labadia was collecting a state pension and medical benefits from his years as a North Providence firefighter, but he's accused of falsifying a document that inflated his years of service. Labadia was indicted by a statewide grand jury. Prosecutors say he took in $155,000 in medical benefits and $68,000 in COLA and pension payments. He pleaded not guilty. Outside court, Target 12 tried to question Labadia moments after his appearance before a judge.
Chief, any reaction? Chief? Chief, come on. Chief, any reaction? Chief, come on. Don't make me chase you. No reaction, Chief? To the indictment, what do you have to say about the whole situation?
Labadia was terminated as Coventry District Fire Chief after a Target 12 undercover investigation raised serious questions of accountability with the chief. In the wake of the report, his service elsewhere then came under the microscope of North Providence city officials.
And Charlie Lombardi, the mayor of Providence, is heck bent on getting what he thinks is the taxpayers' money back from Mr. Labadia. So not only the criminal issues here, but some serious retribution or repayment may be in the offing. The other thing is that, you know, Paul, maybe you want to just stand there and say no comment. It's very dangerous to be running away from cameras. I don't know. It's okay. You say no comment 2 or 3 times, they'll quit. All right, but we're not quitting in Afghanistan, which is probably a good thing. Washington Post tells you what's happening here. The president had an address. He's going to keep 5,500 troops in Afghanistan, but that's after 2016. What he's going to do is keep 10,000 troops in Afghanistan through 2016, and to me that feels like a tentative number. He spoke today.
While America's combat mission in Afghanistan may be over, our commitment to Afghanistan and its people endures. The bottom line is, in key areas of the country, the security situation is still very fragile. And in some places, there's risk of deterioration.
Look, the president has reversed his decision. He wanted to get down to 1,000 troops max, but there's too much replication of the Iraq problem, where America dashed and the place is a mess. And military experts have been telling the president, you gotta rethink this whole thing. And so we'll stay with 10,000 troops through 2016, with 5,500 to remain after 2016 into 2017. Now that helps the next president, whoever that may be, with a transition. It also shows that President Obama is at least a little versatile when it comes to conditions on the ground. It seems to me that this is probably a good decision. Tough for the families, tough for the troops, but good for strategy. All righty. Did you see last night? I was at a local tavern with no volume, you know, going away party for somebody, and I'm watching Toronto and Texas, and you know, I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. I umpired for, I don't know, 15 years as a younger man, and I was a catcher all through Little League up through high school. So I'm really interested in this play. Did you see it? The headline talks about the 7th inning being crazy for the Jays and the Rangers. Here's the play. And so here's the pitch, right? And so the catcher just casually throws it back and hits the bat with the ball. The runner wisely continues running because the ball's out in play, so he runs. But the umpire had called the play dead. What they had to figure out, though, was whether or not the play was really dead. The truth of the matter is that when a batter's in the box, that is an inadvertent situation. That ball is live and that runner can score, as he has done. What is interesting is if the runner had stopped when the umpire called it dead and went back to third base, that run would not have counted. Do you follow all that? It was fascinating. And of course, the baseball gods came back and awarded Toronto with a victory because they blew Texas wide open later in the ballgame. All right, your state of mind is important to me. 228-1886. Leave me a voicemail. You can email me. You can pay, you can post on Facebook. I don't care what you do. Just let me know what you're thinking. How about this one? On Facebook, as Bernie said last night, enough of the emails. I say enough jumping on Chafee. Well, that was Bernie Sanders that Gene is referring to. Enough of Chafee. Enough of jumping on Chafee. Gene, with all due respect, enough of Chafee. Enough embarrassing the state of Rhode Island. Please, somebody, intervene. It's funny, somebody said to me yesterday, actually, and I won't out that person, but I might at some juncture because you know him. He said, you know what, Chafee is a beautiful mind. He says it's almost spiritual that he can act this way and do these things with all of this opposition, criticism, and screaming for him to leave and not care. He says that's a really neat place to be. Okay. Not for us. All right, these guys wanted a contract, they didn't get it. Now they've got some thoughts to offer. Stay with us. So this headline came out, and some people said yay, and some people said, come on, man. 3 firms picked to put Rhode Island on the map. 2 of the 3 are not from Rhode Island. And it caused one local media agency to say, oh, come on, man. And they reacted. We've got the reaction there, right? Yes, the Adam Media Group finds it troubling that an out-of-state agency was chosen to execute this $4 or $5 million plan, which I think is way underfunded for the state of Rhode Island. But these 2 gentlemen, Mike, Dan, were here recently talking about their plan, and I don't know, did you upset the apple cart by proffering what you wanted to do publicly before the decision was made by the gurus? Welcome, by the way. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Good
to
to
see
see
you
you
again.
Do you think you
I don't think so. I think that this was already staged a while ago. I think they already knew who was going to win. I knew that coming into it. That's why I did it the way I did, to try to push them to actually have a process.
Oh, wait a second now. You didn't tell me that you thought this thing was wired when you came here the first time.
Well, I mean, I assume.
I asked you a bunch of questions as to why you were using a strategy, which I thought was creative. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I mean,
Sure.
you decided that you were going to say, hey, listen, here's what our plan would be, here's what our creative would be, and you did it during the process as applications and evaluations were being made. Somewhat 40 or 50 companies, right?
52 or 53, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, why don't we just show you what Mike and Dan had put together as an example of their theme. We have that, Steve?
Whatever you do.
Whatever you do. Whatever you do.
Whatever you do.
Whatever you do.
Whatever you do.
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island.
Whatever you do, Rhode Island.
So that creative effort was made very public as part of your application process. And your idea was to get people engaged in it and to what, influence the decision?
Well, we wanted to establish a public-private partnership in a way. So all of the stakeholders that we have here in the state, yes, that was a certain component of it, the creative, showing off the beauty of the state, all of that sort of stuff. But a bigger piece was tapping into existing resources that we have here in the state that could assist. So a lot of those bigger companies that we were talking about, and kind of forging a new frontier for a public-private partnership.
Well, hold your thought on that, because that's the strategy in
Execution.
well, yeah, that's your broad strategy. But the decision to proffer your creative during the application process, I thought was a unique and creative idea to do.
Sure.
But you just said something that didn't go by me. You thought, I don't put words in your mouth, but I
Yeah.
think what you just told me is that you thought the deal was wired and you were trying to unwire it by putting some creative pressure on the process. Meaning that the governor and the Commerce Secretary knew who they wanted before the whole thing started.
Well, that's how it's been done in the past. I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt that it wasn't. I wanted to be a little bit more creative than most. I knew there were going to be a lot of people to put their messages forward. Like you said at the beginning, that $5 million wasn't going to be enough. So not only did we have an idea for it, but we also had private money from businesses that we were going to put to the campaign to actually make it a campaign that would actually work. So I wanted to get the ideas out before they just sat on the shelf, and nobody even would, contact us. I mean, look, at the end of the day, we're not sore losers. We certainly would help if the state of Rhode Island called us and asked us to assist, no problem. Not only did we not find out it wasn't open to the public in regards to who was bidding until after the process. We didn't even get an interview. So here we raised almost $350,000 right from the go. And pledged to do another $5 million. We weren't even brought in. We didn't know until the day of. We received an email that said that you haven't been chosen. And again, we were only one piece of the pie. We had mentioned that we would work with other agencies. We had money on the table to actually help the campaign. So I think it's more frustrating. A lot of people come up to us and say, I can't believe they did that. I can't believe they did that. Not so much for me. And a lot of them are business owners. They're not going to say, you should have got it. But what they say is, Rhode Island should have had a crack at this. This is a Rhode Island campaign. It's branding Rhode Island. We're bringing businesses and people into Rhode Island. And what message are we giving where we say, hey, come to Rhode Island, come visit, bring your businesses. But when you get here, we don't have the resources to handle it. It just doesn't make sense. It's not a good message. And I mentioned it the first time. I'm not opposed to having outsiders come into the state when it comes to education. I'm not, into business. But when you're branding your state and not having someone from your state as part of it.
Well, they are in part. And to be honest with you, having not talked to the Commerce Secretary about this yet, he's invited. I've made it clear to the governor's team that he should come in and talk to us about this. They hired Milton Glaser. We'll talk about him in a second, from New York. They hired another PR firm from New York, which has a Providence office. And they hired a local guy, I guess, to coordinate those two, in addition to reporting to a marketing manager, which to me feels like we better hire somebody here to show like we hired somebody here to make sure that these two guys don't go in New York and say they hired guys from outside.
That's exactly why they did.
Don't you feel like that was kind of what...
And not only that, you also have the third agency, which is in Rhode Island, is not doing the media buying, which is the biggest piece, and they're not coming up with the message. So what's that message say?
I think they're getting memos going, that's all right, that's all right. Well, good luck with that.
Well, Dan, Rhode Island's unique in a way that this is a test market for a lot of big marketers, because with one DMA, designated market area, you can hit the entire state. You can hit it with just one station. So, we understand this market better than anybody, and I think that it takes a Rhode Islander to truly understand Rhode Island and how to get a message out there about the state. So, we have a little bit of frustration in why aren't more competent Rhode Island companies being called to the table to assist.
But here's the thing, this program is, there'll be some intra-Rhode Island marketing, but this is a outside the marketplace advertising strategy, which I don't think has enough money built into it to make the kind of buys to bring.
Which is agreed, $5 million not enough. We forgot to mention.
It's not going to be $5 million in ad buying. It's going to be $5 million in totality, and then the creative is going to come out of it, and the agency commissions are going to come out of it, and so maybe it's a couple, $3 million in ad buying in markets like New York and
which is nothing.
And God knows where it won't go anywhere.
Well, it seemed I was hearing some of the feedback. I wasn't actually at the award myself, but I'm starting to hear some feedback that it seems as if the state may increase the budget for this, right? So rather than solving the problem by getting partners to come to the table and assist without actually taking more money out of the state coffers, I think they're going to try and solve that problem by putting more money after it.
Well, we'll see. When we come back, what did win, sort of. Stay with us.
I live in New Hampshire, but I love New York.
I live in West Virginia, but I love New York. I live on Cape Cod, but I love New York.
So, hey, listen, when I was growing up in the 70s, that was in New Jersey. We thought that was really great production, and it was back then. And everyone walked around saying, I love New York. Well, the guy who put that together is the guy that got the lead creative gig for Rhode Island. These two guys did not. I have to laugh. Mr. Glazer, with all his success, admits that that program was the most popular and successful program he's ever had back in the 1970s. And God bless him, at the mature age of 86, he will be the lead creative guy in marketing Rhode Island. You can have the floor and react to that if you want.
You know, at the end of the day,
I can't wait to meet him.
Yeah, an outside perspective is okay. Like I said, the three firms that were chosen, Rhode Island being just the fact that they live in Rhode Island, it should have been switched over. I mean, we got to keep jobs here in Rhode Island. We have to keep, you know, we have to believe in ourselves. You know, at the end of the day, we have the talent here. We have unbelievable colleges and universities. I mean, here's, you know, again, we are disappointed. We're certainly not sore losers. And like I said, if the governor wants to call and ask us for our help, no problem. But at the end of the day, it wasn't transparent on the process. They didn't even bring us in. If I was, I'm a business owner.
Do you know of any other organizations locally or regionally that were brought in for interviews?
No idea.
No, I know some were, but we don't know who.
And I don't even think these two agencies, and I don't know this for a fact, but I don't believe these two agencies even presented their findings from what my team told me. They were just chosen. Again,
I think a better approach, if they were going to do something like this, would be to maybe look at having your production and messaging come from the state and then get your independent verification from outside the state. They kind of did it opposite. They are getting their messaging from outside the state. Then they're using, not an insider, but a Rhode Islander to verify the messaging.
I'll tell you, it's an underfunded, conceptual boondoggle, as far as I'm concerned. Whether you guys got the deal or not, it was still going to be underfunded.
Sure.
And then they took $500,000 and decided that they'd build a bureaucracy to make sure that they could cover this.
They brought the $500,000 in-house. They're gonna hire marketing people to help with this. Dan mentioned that the governor had mentioned that they were going to try to get other resources, which kind of seems like a plan that makes sense.
Well, that's
I think
not
I
an
might have
easy
mentioned
budgetary process. I mean, if they're going to try to jack it by $10 or $15 million, that's going to be an argument that they're going to have to make, you know, in the next budget cycle. But one question, we only got a minute. You guys told me that no matter what, your Whatever You Do Rhode Island campaign could live past a no decision for you. So, are you still going to try to run your own separate road here?
If we can continue to raise funds, I mean, our website is still up. We still talk about it on social. We're still doing interviews. Absolutely. If someone wants to call us and say, look, what are your ideas? Even this New York company, it would make sense for them. They don't have to bring their production folks from New York. That's going to cost money. Put the budget towards the media buying. We have the quality here. Even if they were to come up with
But realistically, you got other things to do.
We do.
Yeah, we have to pay the bills.
Yeah,
and we have to hire more employees, and I thought that the state would want to keep that in-house. We promised 5 jobs. That's 5 jobs if people are not going to
Less
get it.
work.
But what we really want to do is make sure that the campaign is a success no matter what. So we're not going to continue forging forward with the campaign if it's going to get in the way of what the Milton Glazer is going to do or any other company. Right. So we want the request to come from the top.
Makes sense. Well, stay tuned. You never know. Appreciate it, guys. Be right back. Wanted to mention very sad news. Joe Rodeo passed away this week. Labor attorney, union attorney, a guy that really understood the fabric of Rhode Island, a guy who was a resource to this program, controversial in the way he did business sometimes, but I think loved by more people than not. And a guy who had a little bit of a signature on the fabric of Rhode Island. He'll be missed. Godspeed to him, and my condolences to his family and friends. Joe Rodeo, good guy. We'll miss him. Good night.